Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the licensing requirements for co-located CNDD processing facilities. As we start today, just want to go over a few things. The first thing is that this webinar is being recorded and it will be made available to participants later on. We will have it posted to the agency's YouTube page, as well as having it linked on our website. For those who joined today, through the webinar link, your cameras and microphones are automatically disabled, so you do not have to worry about those being turned on at any point. Anyone who is an environmental health specialist or an environmental health specialist in training, we did apply for 1 credit hour for this webinar. For those to verify attendance, we are trying a new process today. At the end of today's webinar, right before the questions, there will be a link posted in the chat to a survey. At that survey, you will have the option to verify your attendance for those credit hours that we will submit to Ohio Department of Health. All participants will have the ability to chat in questions throughout the webinar. We will have people answering those questions live, as well as having a dedicated time at the end to go over any questions people have. You also are able to send your questions to my email, leanne.greenlee@epa.ohio.gov, or to Jeff Montavon at jeffrey.montavon@epa.ohio.gov. Those emails will be listed in the chat. So to kick off today's webinar, I will turn it over to Joe Gocochea, one of the assistant chiefs in Ohio EPA's Division of Materials and Waste Management. Joe, we're ready for you.
All right, thanks, Leanne. Good morning, everybody. I'll echo Leanne's appreciation for everyone taking some time this morning to join the call. So yeah, this is essentially the kickoff to this new C&D processing facility program. And to get to the point we are today, I just wanted to just highlight, some of the steps that we took to get here, right? So this did not happen overnight. I want to appreciate the collaboration that we've had with CDAO, NWRA, industry consultants and other professionals, certainly our health department partners and other stakeholders. So it's been a collaboration thus far. We will continue to collaborate with the stakeholders as we continue to build this program. Today, we're going to talk about the licensing for the upcoming 2023 year, but there's still more to come in terms of building this program to make sure that it, overall, we want to support C&D recycling across the state, right, throughout communities and through your facilities. For those that are on the phone or on the call for representing facilities, these facilities are important to the C&D recycling infrastructure, and we certainly want to build a program that supports that while at the same time providing the safeguards that the regulatory framework establishes. So with that, again, Ohio EPA, you're going to hear from a number of speakers today. Our staff are here to support the facilities along the way, both in terms of the licensing, but also as the program takes off in 2023. We're also here to support the health departments. And so for the health departments that are on the call throughout this licensing cycle and moving forward, we'll continue, as we always do, have that support from our district office staff and from central office as well. I think I'm back. I think cut out for a second. So with that, just also want to quickly thank the speakers today. Aaron Shear and I think OCAP is joining as well, and all the folks behind the scenes that prepared this presentation. So thanks to the team. And again, I mentioned all the collaboration, and so CDAO was part of building the rules thus far and the kickoff of the program. And so I do want to invite Mike Deneen to come on as well and say a few things before we kick this off.
Morning, everybody. I'm still looking at Joe, so I didn't know how this works, but I apologize. I appreciate the agency allowing me to speak a little bit today. I'm going to point out, just from a facility perspective, a little bit. The history is long and distinguished in this attempt. I don't know if people know this or not, but this actually started in 2017 or a little bit before even with Senate Bill 2. So we have a long history of our advocacy for what's going on here. And with that always comes things that we got right, things we got wrong, and things we fixed. So I appreciate everybody's grace as we go through this. The agency has given us a lot. We need to give the agency and the interpreters a lot as well. The CDAO did work with the agency on this package back and forth. We had agreements, we had disagreements, we had compromises. We're going to continue to have all of those things. There is going to be a learning curve here, and the agency has acknowledged that, and we do as well. The biggest thing about that learning curve is, I'm going to give a shameless plug to the CDAO. We have a tremendous working relationship with the agency in how we can communicate and talk to Joe and Aaron and the rest of the team and get the potential problems, the things that have been seen in the future, coming in the future anyways, so we can try to head things off or things that happen and we work on them. But the important thing to remember with that is, for anybody that's working on trying to get through this process, individual problems are difficult to deal with. You are dealing with the local interpreter of that information. This is a completely new package. Everybody is kind of grabbing at straws sometimes with some things. So again, we give everybody a little grace and we work with everything. If you come to the industry and we come to the CDAO, we're not a big, depth of organization. Everything's voluntary, and we communicate with each other so we can help everybody out. We may have an answer to something that's going on as we go forward. We also may be able to advocate with the agency to get things figured out, guidance documents, interpretations as we go forward, so we make sure we're all consistent. So again, from an association perspective, which I believe is the same as the agency, the goal is to make the interpretations consistent, to find common interpretations for them across the state. And when we have potentials, which we're going to, as with every regulatory rollout, this is initial rollout for something that's never been regulated before. So we have to acknowledge that and continue to work with the agency and with ourselves the best we can so that we can continue to allow recycling to happen and encourage the recycling of the construction demolition commodities. This is a different program. Everybody has acknowledged that. And it's, as a result, done not the same way that all waste is taken care of, but we have the potential as construction demolition debris material recycling operations around the country do. We have the potential to get up into the 80, 90, 95% recycling rate as the markets continue to develop and we continue to support that recycling, which is a tremendous goal and would be a tremendous thing for the state of Ohio to be able to do. And hopefully with this package, we do it in a responsible manner that allows us to do that without controls that are prohibitive and also being protective of all those things that the agency protects. So if anybody has any questions for me, I know the chat function works and that kind of stuff. They have my contact information and the CDAO if you're looking for additional information. The consultants participate, anybody else that's doing their thing. We can always kind of put together a team and help you navigate this process as it goes forward to make it as simple as possible.
Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate that introduction. Same with you, Joe. Thank you for kicking off today's meeting and training. As both Joe and Mike discussed, today we're going to be focusing on the licensing requirements for co-located processing facilities. I'll give a little bit of background here in a minute about processing kind of in general in the state, some of the differences and nuances between standalone facilities and co-located, what that terminology means. But really, we're going to be focusing on licensing requirements today. We want to applaud and promote, the diversion of these waste streams from landfills. Many of them are commodities. They can be recycled. They can be reused. So why take up precious landfill space here in Ohio? If it's done in an environmentally safe and sound manner, let's promote that. Let's applaud the facilities that are doing those activities currently. and help more do those kind of activities in the future. So with that being said, let me share my screen here. I'm also going to, let's see here, turn off my camera. Great. Can everybody see the PowerPoint? Can I maybe get a thumbs up? Is the PowerPoint in presentation mode? Can people see that at the moment? Okay. So with that being said, like I said, I'm Aaron Shear. I'm the supervisor of the Construction and Demolition Debris Unit here in the Division of Materials and Waste Management out of Central Office in Columbus, Ohio. My unit oversees construction demolition debris across the state. We want to ensure that the rules are being implemented consistently and fairly across the state, both for the industry and for our health district partners. We appreciate everyone's help on these rule writing efforts and getting us to where we are. As Mike had said, this took many years in the making. And this is the first, kind of rollout of this new program for both these types of facilities. So I'm sure there'll be some hiccups along the way, but I think we have a very good program here in place. And I look forward to working with everybody as we, roll this out over the next couple of months. So in general terms, what is construction and demolition debris processing? Well, it's handling, moving, kind of working with the construction demolition debris and separating it out so that it can be used in a beneficial manner and it can be turned into a commodity. So what does this handling include? Well, it's the receipt, storage, taking the C&D from, say, containers, roll-offs, vehicles down to a working surface, separating it out to the various types of commodities and reintroducing that commodities into the market for recycling or reuse purposes. What exactly is a C&D processing facility then? Well, it's a piece of land, it's a location, it's a building, it's a site to be used or intended to be used for that processing, transferring, recycling of construction demolition debris. I should note that it's not where the material is actually generated. So it's a kind of a secondary location or a third-party location where the actual processing is occurring. So if you're knocking down a large structure, say a school, a hospital, a stadium, some kind of large commercial building, and maybe you're doing some general recycling of the material or processing there at the point of generation of that construction debris or demolition debris, that doesn't qualify as a processing facility. So we're talking about taking this material, moving it somewhere else, then doing that separating. Today, we're talking about co-located, which is basically at the point of the landfill. I'll go into a little more detail on what that means here in a second. C&D processing facilities also do not include licensed solid waste transfer or solid waste landfills. It also doesn't cover licensed C&D landfills where that processing is only occurring, that mixed C&D is only being processed completely and wholly within the unloading zone. So if you're bringing that material into your landfill, you're taking it to your unloading zone, you're doing that processing activities right there at the unloading zone, this rule package would not cover those types of activities. That's just part of normal landfill activities. There's a few exclusions regarding construction demolition debris processing. The first of which are for facilities that consist solely of containers that have a total aggregate volume of 50 cubic yards or less of mixed material on site at any point in time. And that C&D is never hitting a working surface, so it's never being placed on the ground, or it's never actually being placed into any type of equipment. So any type of separation equipment, any kind of conveyor belts, screening tools, anything else. If that's not happening, you're excluded. So scenarios here are the very small demolition companies, maybe small construction companies. Say they're doing a kitchen renovation, they're pulling out cabinetry, they're pulling up flooring, they're generating small amounts of demolition debris, maybe throwing that debris back in a pickup truck, taking it back to their shop. They have, say, a 40-yard roll-off box at the back of their shop. They're throwing that material in that roll-off box. They're never hitting a working surface. Once that 40-yard roll-off gets full, they're taking it to a C&D landfill. Those kind of smaller operations would be excluded. The other exclusion is really pertaining to the transportation of dumpsters and portable containers from one location to another. And once again, if that material stays in the containers, it's never placed on the ground or a working surface, and it's stored in those containers for no more than 7 days. So this type of scenario here is, say somebody has a dumpster business, they do their runs to construction sites or demolition sites Monday through Friday, let's say, and then every Saturday they use the same trucks to haul those dumpsters back from their yard to the landfill. And as long as those dumpsters are full of C&D that's never hitting the ground, never being transferred around, and ends up at the landfill after that 7-day window, that's also excluded. So I mentioned earlier, there's two types of processing facilities. There are standalone C&D processing facilities and co-located. So a standalone facility, we've already done some outreach and training back in June. We have some more scheduled here in October. Those standalone facilities are ones that are not associated with a landfill facility. They're not located within the facility boundary of a licensed C&D facility, i.e. a landfill. And basically, they're not part of that landfill license, that C&D facility license. Rules for standalone facilities became effective back in April 18th of this year. Those types of facilities have to get their initial permit and license in coming up here in October 18th. So if you're a standalone facility, there's already some training on our webpage. There's a YouTube channel and a recording of prior training regarding those permitting and licensing activities. We won't be focused on those today. We'll be focusing on the co-located processing facilities today. So co-located, as I alluded to earlier, this is a processing facility that is located wholly within the facility boundary of a licensed construction and demolition debris landfill. These rules became effective back in July 4th of this year. And really what we did is we went into existing rules already located in 400 and just added concepts of processing within the landfill rules. So we have some new definitions found in 01, some new applicability and standards found in 02, and then some of the design requirements in 07. Financial assurance is also in there. Operational rules have been revised, and some of the certified operator rules. We'll be providing additional training here in the fall pertaining to operational rules, general record keeping, some best management practices, and some other activities for these co-located processing facilities. So what's new with these co-located facilities? Well, there are some new licensing requirements. The facilities must obtain a license. Here, if you're in existence, it'll be a single license application for both. That's why it hence co-located, but the processing facility and the landfill. For facilities that are already in existence, though, I think we have anywhere from 14 or 16 of these landfills in the state that also are co-located with a processing facility. There is this 180-day window from when the rules became effective to when they have to get their initial license in. So a co-located facility license is due by this end of December 31st. I will explain here in a couple of slides how this will kind of be tied in with the normal landfill renewals, which are due in September. And so this year we kind of have a lag, so it'll be a little bit different, but in future years, this will be one license renewal, one license application moving forward. So as I said, for the 2024 licensing year and moving forward, the landfill license, so the processing facility license and the landfill license will be a single renewal that's due September 30th, just like the landfill license. We'll incorporate the tabs, so everybody's familiar, health departments and landfills are familiar with our tabs and our tab system in eBiz, our licensing program. We're just going to add and revise some of the tabs to include the facility design plan of the processing facility, some of the additional financial assurance obligations, and the fire prevention plan. This cycle, we're going to kind of have our separate licensing for these co-located facilities. everything's kind of status quo for the landfill cycle. So do what you've always done when it comes to your landfill renewal. That's still due September 30th of this year. Everything is still in eBiz in the licensing module. So health departments, you're doing nothing different than what you've always done to review the landfill renewal. Consultants and landfill operators, same thing. It's the same system in eBiz for your landfill license and your landfill renewal. The normal forms can all be found on our webpage. We have added a new form, which I'll talk about here in a minute, called the 2023 addendum, the co-located addendum. If you go on our webpage and go to our permits, registrations, and licensing link, there'll be new links for these co-located facility licensing. As far as who reviews these licenses, it's the licensing authority. In most situations, it'll be the approved Board of Health. We have many health departments in the state that are approved to implement our solid waste and construction and demolition debris programs on our behalf. We appreciate the collaboration and the assistance from our health district partners. We really appreciate you guys implementing the program on our behalf. If you're not sure if you're licensed by a health department, you can click on the link attached here. This will be saved and on our webpage, so you can see if you're within an approved health district or not. So as I was saying, this year, it'll be a little bit slightly different license application process. As I said earlier, the landfill license renewal will still occur through eBiz. It'll still be the normal process of uploading the tabs through eBiz, making any additions to those tabs within eBiz and submitting it as normal. For this year, for the co-located facilities, since that application is not due to the end of December, there is that couple month lag, and eBiz is not set up yet for these types of facilities to be within that system. So we've added this 2023 license addendum, which can be found on our webpage. It's a 3-page addendum with some additional information regarding certified operators, this additional information with the design plan, some financial assurance cost estimate, additional details, and a fire prevention plan. So I'll be going through those details here in the next couple of slides. There are annual license fees for co-located processing facilities. This is new. Landfills do not have fees associated with the license application. Those programs are implemented and run through tipping fees and disposal costs. And that's where the health department and Ohio EPA gets the funds necessary to implement and run the program. Since processing facilities don't generate tipping fees, there are this application fees pertaining to the licensing themselves. So at the time of submittal of the application, there will be a $100 fee. And then once the co-located license has been issued, within 30 days, there is a $650 issuance fee. So every year there'll be a $750 fee associated with licensing of co-located processing facilities. And as I said, those fees then go to the health department or Ohio EPA to assist in implementing the program. Similar to the certified operator program at our landfills, there will be a certified operator that would need to be reasonably available each day for co-located processing facilities. This certified operator can be the same individual that's the certified operator for the landfill. We've added that flexibility into 426, the operator certification rule. We've also switched some of the training requirements, so they're not as rigid as prior years, where you needed 4 hours of rules and laws and 6 hours of BMPs. Now there's a 2-hour rules and laws, 6 hours of BMPs, and then 2 hours of just more flexibility. They could be rules and laws or BMPs. But it'll be the same certified operator program that folks are familiar with for landfills. It's just now a similar requirement for these co-located facility operators. So this information, the certified operator ID number, will need to be on this application. If you don't have a certified operator at this point in time, we encourage you to name someone as an interim operator. That interim operator has 365 days to get that certification. So to receive those 10 hours of training and fill out the application to become a certified operator. As far as the design plan is concerned, there already is a design plan for landfills. So all we're doing here is adding some additional requirements, some additional drawings, some additional details, some additional calculations to account for that co-located processing facility. So in future iterations, you'll just see, I think it's tabs 4 and 5 in the license application will be added to. This year, this is just part of the addendum. So we want to see a plan drawing that shows the facility boundary of the processing facility. Within that boundary, we want to see the horizontal limits of construction, demolition, debris processing. And then we also want to see for siting criteria, occupied dwellings within 500 feet and perennial streams in category 3 wetlands within 100 feet. In many situations, there is some grandfathering clauses. And so if these landfills demonstrate that they have been processing prior to the effective date of Senate Bill 2, which is back in 2017, the siting criteria doesn't apply. We still want to see where these occupied dwellings are, just to know from a perspective of where everything's located. Same with the category 3 wetlands and perennial streams, but the siting criteria will not apply to those facilities that have been grandfathered in. Also in the design plan, there's some additional detailed drawings. So we want to see the boundaries, the dimensions, the location, composition of all of the piles or proposed piles of mixed construction demolition debris. So there is a new definition in 400-01 of what mixed C&DD is. That's pretty much the raw material coming in from a demolition project or a construction project where it's all kind of commingled together. It's mixed. It hasn't gone through that physical separation. It hasn't gone through separating it out to different types of commodities. So it's more than one type of C&D. So this is where you get your bricks and block and dimensional lumber, your glass, your roofing material, everything's kind of mixed together. Similarly, at the end of the line, that recovered screen material RSM is also mixed C&DD. So we want to see where those piles of RSM are also located, since that is covered within mixed C&DD. Also within the detailed drawings, we want to show the locations of existing or proposed fences, gates, other screens, visual barriers if needed. We also want to see the location or design of surface water drainage features and sediment control structures, as well as any working surfaces. So where's kind of your laydown area? Where will the processing actually be occurring of this construction demolition debris? Where will you be storing the material? How will the material be processed? Lastly, on the design plan, there are some new calculations that also go in to this document. We want to see the maximum rate of processing in cubic yards per day, just to have a good understanding on kind of the inputs and outputs of the site. We don't have a set prescribed limit, like we're not going to set a maximum daily rate. We just want to know kind of what the inputs outputs are of the facility, what you expect to be processing within any day. The second item here is the maximum volume of mixed construction demolition debris that may accumulate at any point in time. So mixed C&DD can be stored for up to a year, actually up to 18 months at a co-located processing facility. But there is some financial assurance obligations associated with that mixed C&DD. So it's important to give us your maximum amount that you have calculated out that will be stored at any point in time or accumulated at any point in time at that co-located facility, because later on here we'll see about financial assurance obligations. And then from a surface water standpoint, we want any kind of calculations for that surface water drainage and sediment control structures. So financial assurance. I think most of you are familiar with financial assurance and how that works. C&DD landfills already have to have financial assurance and maintain that through their cost estimation tools. Health departments, I think, are already mainly familiar with this. If you're not, this is an instrument that is used to ensure that there are resources available to pay for final closure of the facility. So if in the unfortunate event there's a bankruptcy or some type of enforcement action or something happens to the owner operator of the site and they're no longer in a financially stable means of being able to clean up and close the site, there is that money, there is resources set aside that the health department or the state can go in and close the facility properly. Financial assurance has to be funded within 30 days of license issuance. This is similar to the C&DD landfill license as well. So once the co-located license has been issued, that cost estimate has to actually be funded. So what goes into the cost estimate? Well, for co-located processing facilities, it is an amount based on the maximum volume of mixed C&DD. So that's why those design plans and calculations on the prior slides are very important. We want to see what the maximum amount of C&DD will be stored on site and accumulated at any point in time, along with that recovered screen material on site. There's a couple different places to store and accumulate your mixed C&DD. If this is occurring within the ALDA, so the active license disposal area, and there is enough airspace available through a demonstration that there's enough constructed and certified airspace to dispose of that mixed C&DD at any point in time, the financial assurance amount is $4.25, so $4.25 for that maximum C&DD stored within an ALDA. If it's outside the ALDA, so it's either in the ILDA or somewhere else within the facility boundary of the landfill, but not within the active disposal area. Once again, if there's sufficient airspace within the active disposal area, but it's stored outside of it, it costs a little bit more maybe to relocate that material, load it into trucks or vehicles to move it to within that ALDA. It's $8.25. So a little more financial assurance obligations for mixed material within that location. Then there's the final calculation. If there's not enough constructed airspace within the ALDA, so basically the landfill has not constructed the cell, or there's not enough space for stored material, then the max is $35 per cubic yard. And so basically that's in the event that the health department or the state would either have to design and build some additional cell at the landfill, or even actually physically move that material to a different landfill. So that's why we see that $35 per cubic yard weight rate. That is the similar rate for standalone construction demolition debris facilities. So you'll see that value other places as well. So the fire prevention plan will include some additional obligations regarding where fire equipment is located. Have you notified the fire department that you are located at a landfill? There are also some additional requirements just to notify on a drawing on where any kind of fire prevention equipment may be located. So fire extinguishers, maybe any on-site soils or anything else that could be used for fire protection. And then what kind of response will be taking place in the event that there is a fire or heating event of any sort. And so making sure that we have proper resources in place as part of that fire plan. So I skipped over those slides. I think what we'll do as part of the recording on YouTube is I'll make sure those aren't kind of dubbed over. And so we can see those slides as well. So really, for like I said, this year, as part of the licensing cycle, the landfill license is going forward as normal. So get those licenses in, the renewals in by the end of September 30th through eBiz. And then you have those additional couple of months to get that addendum in through not eBiz this time. It'll just be either an electronic submittal through our Dropbox or through the health department. You can reach out to your approved health department to figure out what they prefer for that submittal of the addendum. Like I said, the addendum itself, I think, is 3 pages. It's asking for some additional information of the design plan. It's asking for those financial assurance cost estimation and cost estimates. It's asking for the certified operator information, and then that fire prevention plan, and lastly, that $100 application fee. As we said earlier in the PowerPoint, this is a new program for everybody, so I know there will be a lot of questions. If we don't get through all the questions today, feel free to reach out to me or any of my team. We're all listed here, contact information. We're all here in central office in DIMWIM. Email is probably the best way to reach us, but feel free to give us a call as well. We'll help you walk through any of the process of completing these applications or any general questions you may have. As I said, there are some nuances between a standalone processing facility or a co-located processing facility. So making sure that we understand the differences between those two types of facilities is important. So here is my information. At this point in time, I'm going to hand the slideshow over to Samira Deeb. She is with our Office of Compliance Assistance and Pollution Prevention through OCAP, and she'll present some information on what OCAP can provide through assistance and what are things they can be here. So, Samira, I'll let you hand it off and let me know when I can switch the slides.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. I'm with the Office of Compliance Assistance and Pollution Prevention, so it's OCAP for short. So if you hear me saying OCAP, that's what I mean. So my team and I are actually part of a non-regulatory program where we offer free and confidential assistance to help small businesses comply with environmental regulations. While we're housed in Ohio EPA, actually, it's important to note we're actually non-regulatory. And just to give you a little bit of background, OCAP's Compliance Assistance Program was established within Section 507 of the Clean Air Act, 1990 amendments, and it required each state to establish a small business assistance program. And the idea was to help businesses understand complex regulations, which the Clean Air Act is notoriously known to house some of the most complex regulations in the environmental realm. So also to note on our confidentiality before I proceed, when an entity works with OCAP, by law, we can't share information about the entity without their permission, and OCAP assistance is not subject to public records review. Now, of course, there's always exceptions. So if we see something that's egregious, poses clear and immediate danger, or is criminal, we do have to breach confidentiality and report what we see. So I just wanted to clear it up. But we usually, most of the time, a facility or an entity will give us permission to communicate with an inspector or a permit writer to basically facilitate compliance. So next slide, please. So what does OCAP do? Really, our main goal is to assist facilities in achieving compliance with environmental regulations. So if you're unsure about what environmental regulations apply to your business, you can schedule, we do on-site or virtual assistance visits. And we actually will assess all sources in your facility for applicable environmental regulations. So if we identify that a unit or a source needs a permit, we can actually assist in the application process and fill out forms and perform calculations. Furthermore, we actually assist also with developing record keeping. So that's after the permit's been issued, essentially to ensure that you're complying with permit requirements and conditions. And if an environmental question comes up or you just need help filling out a report for Ohio EPA, you can always reach out to us. We have a hotline live chat feature I'll mention later, but basically kind of just need a question answered or be directed in the right path. So to further help out businesses and the regulated community, we do provide, my unit will actually publish guidance documents, fact sheets, and we host webinars, and we have 2 conferences, the Sustainability Conference and the Compliance Conference. So ultimately, we're just a resource for the regulated community to understand and navigate environmental regulations. So OCAP services actually are limited by law. I have to note that we can't assist Title V facilities. So these are the facilities that emit more than 100 tons per year of criteria pollutants. Additionally, OCAP can't assist with anything that requires a PE, and we're limited to we can't do complex air modeling is some of the things that we're basically limited to in regards to resources. And next slide, please. So beyond the new C&D licensure or the PTI requirements for the standalone facilities, typically C&D facilities have to comply with other environmental permitting requirements. So, and in general, most C&D facilities will potentially have to be evaluated for stormwater permit and an air permit. So stormwater permitting actually requires evaluation because activities that take place in industrial facilities, such as material handling or storage that's outside, are exposed to stormwater. So the runoff from these activities can lead to discharges of industrial pollutants into the nearby sewer system or water bodies. So because of this, C&D facilities should be evaluated for stormwater permit from the Ohio EPA. And a stormwater permit would require the use of best management practices to control the stormwater discharges. And this is all based off of the SIC code. And then now regarding more the air permitting, activities that generate fugitive dust, so material handling, material storage piles, roadways, those should be evaluated for an air permit also. So other equipment that you would find at a C&D facility, like crushers, screeners, those are also subject to air permitting. So actually, as you see here, there's a link, and my team actually has created a self-assessment guide that's easy to use. It's a tool that helps businesses determine permitting requirements, and that's across all the Ohio EPA programs. This cool tool could be a good place for some businesses to start. Next slide, please. So I wanted to briefly expand on, I know that today time is limited, on air permitting. So I think a lot of people are confused. They're like, well, it's just dust. Why does that need an air permit? So visible particulate emissions, the dust you see here, is actually regulated as a criteria pollutant. And it's referred to as particulate emissions. And that's actually regulated under the Clean Air Act, and that's why it should be evaluated for an air pollution permit. The reason particulate emissions are regulated is the dust particles are so small they'll actually cross the blood-brain barrier, and such they pose harm to human health. Next slide, please. All right, so how do you request assistance from our compliance unit? So if you're a facility, you would like to request assistance that's confidential, you can call our hotline, use our live chat feature on our website. Inspectors, you can also refer facilities to OCAP. I should note that the majority of our referrals to our program are from inspectors. So you're out there, doing inspections, and so you're more likely to come across facilities that would need our assistance, and that's why it's always good to know who your regional representative is. So next slide, please, Erin, so I could show our OCAP map. Thank you. Here's the whole environmental assistance team. So we're located actually in 5 districts offices across the state. So like I said, whether you're a facility or an inspector, you're encouraged to get to know your district OCAP staff. My team and I are always happy to help. And if, we can't help you with, a permit application or something like that, we do direct you in the right path to compliance, and we can always be a really great resource to you. All right, next slide. And I guess we'll open it up for questions, and I think whether it's to me or for Aaron.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Samir. I believe that's the end of the presentation today. So we will open up the floor to any questions. I haven't been able to monitor the chat feature while speaking. So if Leanne or Jeff or somebody can kind of run down the list of any questions we can answer today. If we can't answer them today, we can reach out to people individually to help answer questions. Like I said, this recording will be up on our website and up on our YouTube channel. We're also going to be doing a refresher of this training in early October. October 6th, we'll be doing a refresher of the licensing requirements for co-located facilities, as well as the permitting and licensing requirements for standalone facilities. So expect to hear more from us in October on that. And then, as I alluded to earlier, in the fall, we'll also be doing some additional training regarding operational requirements and record keeping for these types of facilities. But at this point in time, I'll open it up to any questions. I know we are a little limited on time. I think we got about 10 minutes or so, but we'll try to answer any questions we can at this point in time.
Okay, we do have a couple questions, but before I start with that, I want to just remind everyone that if you are looking to get CEUs for environmental health specialists or environmental health specialists in training, there will be a survey posted in the chat from Jeff with a link. That link will have, a couple questions and then a way for you to verify your attendance today so we can turn that into Ohio Department of Health. We currently haven't got the course approved, but we do not see any reasons why it will not be approved today. So I will go in for the first question. It's a little longer question, Aaron, so if you need me to reread anything, please let me know. So here we go. As long as your processing of mixed CNDD materials occurs wholly within the limits of your unloading zone, the changes to a landfill facility and the related paperwork are extremely small, namely having 4 markers for their unloading zones, and facilities do not need to keep daily logs after 5 years, unless of course your corporate document retention standards require differently. No other changes would apply, including nothing to do with pending license renewals.
Yeah, so there's kind of a question in there, but also kind of a statement. So yeah, so in the operational rules for landfills, we did update some of the requirements for the unloading zone. So in the past, there was only 2 markers. Basically, there was an imaginary line of where that unloading zone was versus the working face. But it really wasn't marked on all 4 sides to kind of show that box or that area that's designated as the unloading zone. So one new rule update is in the unloading zone now there's 4 markers, so it's clearly marked where that unloading zone is. If you're processing CNDD, that mixed material, wholly within that unloading zone, so you're bringing in your mixed CNDD, you're not taking it to some other working surface, you're not taking it somewhere outside of that unloading zone, you're taking it within that unloading zone boundary, dropping it on the ground, and as part of your normal, picking through for any prohibited material, preparing it to go into the landfill itself, but you're also doing some of that general recycling of material. You're separating out any kind of commodity material. If that's happening within the unloading zone with that mixed CNDD, you're not subject to these rules. So you maintain your construction and demolition debris facility license, basically your landfill license, as you always have. You go through your normal renewal process, your normal record keeping. Nothing changes for those types of facilities. Good question.
Okay, the next one. Does a current licensed operating CNDD facility who's also registered for CNDD processing still need to get licensed or another license, even if not planning to have actual processing/operations at this time or in the near future, such as a few years?
Good question. So yeah, if you're currently registered as a processing facility, but you don't envision moving forward with actually being a processing facility at this point in time, You do not need to go through those additional licensing requirements for a co-located facility. One thing we would have to look into, I don't have a clear answer. I'd have to go back and look at the rules. What the applicability is for grandfathering in the site. If you're not going to operate as a processing facility now, I don't know how that affects future licensing. So I would have to go back in and I can follow up with that individual who answered that question or asked that question on how that would play out. But no, there's no obligation right now that you have to go through and get licensed if you're registered. If you're registered and you don't want to move forward with processing, you don't have to.
Okay. We have another one. Will the max rate of CNDD processing be used in any way to place limits on operations at these facilities? What is this information used for?
So this information was it's part of a statutory obligation. It's written in the statute. And basically we just want it for record keeping purposes. We want to just have a good understanding of kind of inflow and outflow. No, it won't be used as part of the license itself. We don't have like municipal solid waste landfills have an AMDWR, which basically is their maximum daily acceptance rate of material. That there's no such concept like that in the co-located rules. But we would kind of want to know what that processing rate is maximum, just so we can kind of keep tabs on, you know, if we're starting to seeing a lot of inbound material, a lot of accumulation of mixed C and DD, and we're not seeing that outbound, and you're approaching your maximum capacity as authorized in your license, and you're approaching that financial assurance kind of ceiling. That's where we kind of want to see, okay, but they do have the capability, you know, they have shown that their max rate is X cubic yards per day or X, you know, volume of material, just so we kind of have that inbound, outbound in mind for that comfort level.
Okay. Will local health departments have the ability to apply additional terms and conditions to licenses similar to how they currently do for CNDD landfills?
Yes, there always is that additional you know, safeguard if needed. It can demonstrate that, you know, that maybe there's some kind of extraordinary need or other need for additional special terms and conditions to a license. You know, this is the first licensing year. We probably want to have some dialogue with the health departments on why that's needed. Is that needed with the current rule structure, and kind of walk through that process. But yes, there always is that kind of tool in the tool belt if needed. You know, these licenses are an appealable action as well, and so we want to make sure we're being fair and lawful. We're also being consistent on a statewide perspective. But yeah, there's always that function there. So if somebody wants to talk about license conditions, yeah, feel free to reach out to my team, and we can discuss the applicability and necessity if that's needed or not.
Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions coming in at the moment. So I think we will go ahead and conclude today's webinar. Just a reminder for everyone that this webinar was recorded and will be posted to the agency's website at a later date. Also, if anyone would like to provide us feedback, there is a link to a survey in the chat. This also is how we will verify attendance for people. So thank you everyone for joining us today.